Hey, what's up guys? So I'm up here in the Rocky Mountains shooting time lapses, and since they're one of my favorite types of clips to get, I just wanted to show you guys how to make them. And they're super easy to make. It doesn't take a whole lot of time and effort. I'm actually shooting one right now up there, and I'm vlogging, so it just tells you how easy it is. Now, a lot of cameras have a built-in time-lapse mode, especially if you shoot on Sony. My camera, this camera actually that I'm using, doesn't have a built-in time-lapse mode. So there are different smart remotes out there. The remote I use is called MIOPS. It's super easy to use. It's accessible by app, so it makes everything super easy. For all the different available things that you can do on it, it's so worth it. Basically, you plug your micro USB into the camera, and the trigger actually has almost like an aux plug-in that you plug into it. It's like a mini aux, and it all gets connected to the camera, and it's able to use that hardware to access your camera and access the shutter and stuff like that. So there's a ton of different modes that you can choose from. What I usually do is I just click quick time lapse. I figure it's the easiest, and when I'm shooting outside during the day, I don't really need to worry about longer exposures and different shutter speeds or anything. So I basically just set it to that, and you can select the interval too. I set mine at 5 seconds depending on how long of a time lapse that I'm planning on taking. If I do 5 seconds, it'll mean I'm taking probably 15 to 20 minute time lapse, and that's just because you don't want to do like a 1 second interval. Well, I don't even know what that is. What is like 1200 frames if you took a 20-minute time lapse if you set it at 1 second interval, and 1200 shots, like that's a lot to process when you're going in and doing the editing and kind of color grading and finishing off your clip. So that's a lot to deal with. So at 5 seconds for 20 minutes, I'm still getting around 500 shots, but that's nowhere near the 1200 that I would have had before. Once you set everything up, you get your settings all right, you make sure you have some nice framing or some decent framing at least, just click start on the app and it'll do the rest. So once you feel like you've got enough shots and you feel like your time lapse is going to be timed up just nice and have enough clips for everything, pretty much you just push stop. You click the lock button and you click stop, and that's it. All those shots are saved in your memory card, and then you just get to edit them in post. And we will get right into that. Okay. So now the first step is, first step is taking off your sweatshirt because it's hot. So, man, did my hair grow since I went to the mountains today? Okay, so the first thing you're gonna want to do is plug in your memory card. And once that pops up on screen, we're gonna open Adobe Lightroom. And from here, we're going to go to import. And then you're basically just gonna import all of the clips that you took from your time lapse. Now we've got all of them selected here, and we're just gonna click import. So this might take a little while, but it is a lot of photos, and presuming that you're shooting in RAW, they're usually a decent sized photo, 25 megabytes, maybe a little more. It's just gonna take a little bit. Okay, now we're imported. So what you're gonna wanna do now is go to develop, and we're just gonna edit one of these photos. If you don't know how to edit your photos or anything like that, I'm gonna be making a video just talking about my basic editing steps that I go through. So just wait for that. Hopefully that'll be out next week. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna do a really quick speed through edit. So if you really wanna know what I did, you can slow down the video. So yeah. And okay, so that is probably all I'm gonna do with this photo. You can go more in depth with it, but when I'm doing time lapses, I usually just do the basics because when you start getting into graduated filters and radial filters and stuff like that, it can get kind of weird. And yeah, so once you've got a good edit down, you've got it looking like how you want it to look, all you're gonna do is go back to library. You're gonna click on one photo and you're going to push edit, select all, or command A. So once you have all of them selected, you're going to go to sync settings. Just make sure all the basic stuff is selected, and you're just gonna click synchronize. And so what this is gonna do is this gonna paste all of the adjustments that you did on that one photo to every single one of them. And this is gonna take a little bit of time too. Okay, so now we are done. So as you can see, every single photo has that preset pasted on it. So it won't look any different when you put the whole time lapse together. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to do file and export, and you have to make sure all the photos are still selected. So you can check this by looking up here, and it says export 247 files to, and I'm gonna choose a location. So I'm just gonna create a new folder inside this video's file, and we'll call it mountain TL, mountain time lapse. Create and choose, and then export. So now it's gonna export all 250 photos, and this is gonna take a little bit too. It's finally exported. Okay, so now we're going to open Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere, depending on what you use. I use Final Cut though, so we're just gonna create a new project. So I already have a library, so I'm just gonna create a new project, and we'll call it mountain time lapse again. Usually format and stuff, I just do 1080p, 23.98 usually renders the best quality. Yep, push OK. We have a new project. So now we're gonna import the clips that we just exported. Mountain time lapse right here. So I'm gonna import all of those files. And this works just as well in Adobe Premiere. Pretty much the same standard stuff, just I don't know, different programs. So now we have all of our photos that we just had, right, that we just edited, exported. So now I'm going to, since there's already some clips in this project folder, I'm just gonna scroll to the top of where they started, which is right here, and I'm just gonna drag all the way down to where they end, which is here. And from there, I'm just gonna drag and drop. So now we have all of our clips in, but as you can see, each clip is 5 seconds long, which, each clip is 10 seconds long. So that means for 10 seconds, you're just looking at one clip, and then in another 10 seconds, it'll skip to the next clip, and then the next clip. So to change the duration of clip, you have to make sure every single clip is selected. So select all, then you go to modify, change duration, or Control D. Click that, and it'll pop up with a little purple time of how long this video currently is, and it's currently 41 minutes long, so that's not what we want. So instead of this, we're just gonna do 1/10 of a second. So just type in 1 and push enter, and every single clip is gonna get smashed down into 1/10 of a second. So we went from a 41-minute long video to a 10-second long video because each clip is smashed down into a fraction of what it was. So now what you can do is you can play this through once it's rendered, and you can see your time lapse in basic stages. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna export this again, share, master file, settings. I usually do better quality, still at 1080, and next, and then save it to there, and that'll put it in a full clip form. And then once that has finished sharing, we are now able to import that full clip back into our project. So here's our full video. And what we're gonna do is just import that right back into the same project we had it in. And now what I usually do is I usually get rid of all of these clips because we've already created the video that we wanted. Drag our full video in, as you can see. And what I usually do is sometimes there's some shakiness, and to fix that, because it's in a set position, I usually click on this little stabilization button, and this will analyze for dominant motion, and it will just hold your clip in the same spot for the full duration. And I've talked about stabilization a little bit before on this channel, so if you haven't seen that video yet, here's a link to it. You should go check that out and just see how good automatic stabilization on Final Cut is. Okay, so now you can see that the video is a little more stable than it was before. But we have our full time lapse. So maybe you want the clouds to be moving a little bit faster. And all you're gonna do is we're just gonna retime it. So you can go to this little stopwatch button, and we're gonna go fast, and we're just gonna multiply it by 2. And immediately you're able to see, well, that's 2 times faster. Yep. And what's crazy about time lapses is I sat there and took a time lapse for 15 minutes, and all we're getting is this little 5-second clip. Like, that's all we have after all of that time, after all those shots. And that's why you really need to take a lot of photos. Time lapses kind of take some time, but they're super easy once you figure them out. And if you want to add a little something to it, like a quick pan or something like that, what I do is I click this transform button down at the bottom left right here. You can kind of drag your video out to make it bigger and drag it over to the edge. I try to keep it in the middle as much as possible, so where my Y is still at 0. Just add a keyframe up here, which is this little triangle plus button. So I add a keyframe, and then if you push down, you can go to the end of your clip. And what you can do is you can drag it over all the way to here, keeping your Y at 0. And so what that does is it'll give your video some motion. So if the clouds are panning one way, I like to pan the same way the clouds are going. I think it looks a lot better that way, but you know, just have some fun with it. Make it your own style. So it just adds a little bit to it. So yeah, that's it. This is our full time lapse. Time lapses are super easy, and they're just so fun. I think there's just a lot of different things that you can do with them. Hopefully you enjoyed this little tutorial I had. But anyway, if you have any other questions about time lapses, please leave them in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Later.